annual Historic Society meeting for October. See, I'm prepared. This is going to be our last meeting for this year. And I wanted to remind people that the next meeting will be January 16th here. And it will be a meeting that the DAR, the Daughters of the American Revolution, asked us about, Dan, was it about a year ago? That they asked us to research it. There's a church out at Kingsville called French's Church behind the Fish and Pig out there. And there's a story that goes along with the church, that it was an old church and it has a graveyard and 70 soldiers are buried there. Over the period of 100 years, Paul Hurl wrote 25 articles about it. Mr. Walls certainly believed the story was true. The DAR in the 50s put up a highway marker type sign right there in front of that little grocery store next to the Fish and Pig. So everybody says it's true. Ray Gaston says it's not. Anyway, DAR asked me and Dan to get to the bottom of the story, and we've been working on it behind the scenes, well, I guess almost a year. In January, we're going to have the DAR ladies here as our guests, and we're going to say why we believe it's true. Ray Gaskins and another fellow who agrees with Ray is going to tell us why it can't be true. So that ought to be an interesting meeting in January. I also wanted to tell y'all that I went down to the town office to reserve the train station for next year, and I didn't get January reserved, but they informed me that the train station is going to undergo a restoration. They've already started. They got work cones and all. They put handicap access here on the back of the building, on that end of the building in the last week or so. But we're not going to be able to be in here for several months. So we've only got 5 meetings scheduled for next year. We'll have to see how the rest. They couldn't give me any exact dates because they don't know when the contractors will start and finish and so on. But there's going to be some disruption next year, let's put it like that. I can't think of anything else that I had to tell you. When we come back in January, we will have started a new year, and we'll probably start with new elected officers. The board will meet next month. We'll elect new officers for 2024, and we'll go again. Any questions on any of that? Sounds like fun, doesn't it? Anyway, tonight's program is a College Shoppe history, and I'll give you a little history on that. Kirby Moore, back in the back row, grandson of Mr. Keelan that ran the College Shoppe when I was young. Kirby and I were talking about it. Kirby and a lot of his younger family members didn't know the history of the College Shoppe, and I was telling them what I knew. So one thing led to another, and I ended up researching the whole history of the College Shoppe. About 2 months ago, the Keelans had a family reunion here in Farmville, and I went to the reunion and presented this program to them so they would know all the family history about their grandfather's restaurant. So after I got through, I said, you know, this may be a program for the train station. So here we are tonight. So it's not going to be all about the College Shoppe. I'm going to tell you things that led to the development College Shoppe. And then what happened with the ownership of the College Shoppe as time went on. It's going to be a little bit hard to follow, but I'm going to try to keep y'all, stay with me, and it'll all come clear as we get towards the end of it. The spot downtown that we're going to end up talking about is where that red X is right there. And it's like a walkway between the municipal building on the left and the new town hall on the right. That X signifies where the College Shoppe was many, many years ago now. And there I superimposed a picture of it so you can see how it looked years ago. That's where it was. Stuck right in there. They had to tear it down to build the new police station and new town hall. We're going to also talk about on the left here, which is now Davenport, and we're going to talk about over here where W.A. Watson is. They play a part of this story too. Cindy Driscoll. Cindy was the daughter of Mr. Ray daughter, and she gave me this picture right here. So we're lucky to have this good picture. As you can see, on the left is a municipal building. The time the picture was taken, it was the fire department. They've since closed that door in and put a window there. And over here on the right at the time of this picture, it was a Farmville Motor Company. As many of you remember, when that closed down, they made a mini mall there. Later, the mini mall burned down. And that's how we got the town hall property. I'm going to start back really at, I'm going back as far as 1910 on the downtown Main Street history. But the part that I have highlighted there in pink is down on North Main Street. And that is an area that fire swept through and wiped out all those buildings. And I'll show you a picture of it in a moment. But what I wanted to kind of remind you about is when a merchant would move out, die, close out, just give up and leave an empty slot, it would be a race on to see who could get in that slot. Everybody was shuffling on Main Street. I called it musical chairs. If somebody went out, somebody else jammed in that spot, and then somebody took their spot, and somebody took their spot. It was constant rotation of where the stores were down there. Well, you can imagine in 1926 when the fire came, I think it wiped out 8 stores. So it really caused mass confusion on Main Street for about a year. And some of the events from that fire led to the development, and College Shoppe came from all of that. So I'm going to tell you how it all unfolded. Here where this yellow mark is, that is where Greenberg's department store was, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. And the ownership of that led to a bakery here that was built on the lawn of the courthouse. Years ago, on the courthouse lawn, there were 3 businesses. They had to turn them down when they built the last courthouse. This yellow long mark here, that is where the College Shoppe building actually came to be. And then way down in this blue building represents W.A. Watson, which is another key location. The slot right here on this corner of High and Main, Davenport today, that was a Southside drugstore. And the people that owned that were big players in this story. So let's start with 1909. John Shannon. He had the bakery here right in front of the courthouse at the time. He moved into Farmville. He had a little boy and a little girl. I think he was divorced. He settled in on Main Street to run the home bakery. So he became one of the major players in this story. where he was, sitting right approximately where the courthouse steps are today. He would later end up jumping over here to this big yellow orange spot. Before he got through, he was down here where W.A. Watson is today. So you'll follow Mr. Shannon right on through this whole story. Mr. Shannon became good friends with the Whitaker family. A lot of you know the Whitakers. So he, I don't know what his connection was, but he played, the Whitakers played a big part in Mr. Shannon's life, I'll say that. So in 1916, I want to take you through chronologically. Moving up to 1916, Mr. Shannon outgrew his first little bakery down in the yard of the courthouse. So he moves up and rents at the Barrow building. So he moves from here where the purple is, he moves over here to this middle orange spot. That was called the Barrow building. And there it is right there. And you can see on the left, you can see part of the municipal building. So he rents there. Closes the bakery, comes up there. Bakery business must have been good because he jumps up to a bigger building. There it is, superimposed over the same spot that later becomes the College Shoppe. That is the College Shoppe building. They just put a new front on it later on. The next thing that happened, 10 years go by. I guess the bakery kept on doing good. He stayed there. In the meantime, down the north end of Main Street, this is where the fire hits. March of 26, like 10 o'clock at night, they discover a fire is burning. And the wind is blowing to the north down towards the river, and it ends up taking out 8 buildings. So it went from down here approximately where there's a real estate office here now, the old Dorothy May to me. The fire started up here, right along here, and the wind blew it all the way down here to where it's now a jewelry store. They couldn't stop it. The old buildings were close to it. And as the wind blew it, it just jumped from building to building. The fire actually started in a building called Paulette and Bug Hardware. There's an old calendar I have from them. What stopped it was the alley right here. I call it the alleyway. I'm sure most of you have seen that alley. That was a break that they got to stop the fire and kept it from jumping over to this building here. So there's what it looked like the next morning after all the buildings were burned down. You can see it leveled them. There's another picture. Here is what I would call today the Green Front number 6 building. From here up, it just totally wiped out all the buildings. So, another picture of it. Everybody had to immediately start figuring out whether they're going to open back up or not. Some of them were renting. They had figured if the landlord was going to put another building back up. So you can imagine it's quite a amount of confusion there on Main Street. But within a year, everybody that was going to build back did so. There was some shuffling of, some of them built back, some of them didn't. Most of you, including myself, I had never heard of Greenberg's department store until I started digging around. Did any of y'all ever heard of it? Of course, it was 100 years ago. But the Greenbergs, as a name kind of tells you, they were a Jewish family. And they came first, and then the Weinbergs tagged along shortly thereafter. The Jewish families would come in here and do real good because they had backing, they had plenty of money behind them. They could do what they wanted to do. They had all kind of connections. up in Philadelphia, Boston, New York, where all these dresses and different things are manufactured. All these families had to do was pick up the phone and say, hey, Cousin Eddie or Cousin Joe, send me so-and-so, or send me $100,000 down here. I need. So they were the ruling class on Main Street. Well, both Greenberg, who was a prominent store down there, they rebuilt, and so did the Hub. Both of them didn't build on the exact same footprint, but they were all still right in that same area. And most of all, y'all know where the Hub ended up being. But where I mentioned the Greenbergs was, there was a lady named Rose Peerlove, and she married one of the Greenberg men, and evidently she was sent to Farmville to run the Greenberg's department store. Nowhere have I seen mentioned anything about her husband, so she must have been the head knocker here in Farmville. And in the package with her came along two of her brothers, Jack and Harry Peerlove. So as it turns out with their story today, Jack and Harry, they're going to play a big part in this story. And how they got here was through their sister and through this fire. So that's how the fire started, basically everything unfolded. So in 1931, Greenberg gave it up, and Weinbergs took over Greenberg's. So then it was Weinberg's from then on, and we all know that the Weinbergs kept on gobbling up everything they could, which was good. They did a good business. So there was no more Greenbergs. Jack, one of the two brothers, he either went to pharmacy school or he already had a pharmacy license when he got here. I'm not sure which. But he goes on to be a pharmacist. Harry's in the picture all the time, but we never know what Harry did. He evidently was a little brother and did what Jack told him, I think. But also, when they went out, Miss Greenberg decides she wants to run just a dress store, nothing else, not something complicated like she had. She wanted to have just a dress store. So she and Jack go up and decide they're going to open up a drugstore and a dress store. So we'll leave it at that for a moment. In the fire, this Paulette and Bug, everybody looked for him to build another store, but Mr. Paulette said he had had enough. He was older, and Mr. Bug said, well, I'm going to go in the insurance business. So he completely got out, and Mr. Paulette said, I'm going home. I'm old enough. I'm 65 years old. I'm not having it anymore. So over at the hardware store, instead of being the old name, they ended up naming the guys that worked there at the hardware store, Mr. Motley and Mr. Overton, decided to open a new hardware store, but not call it Paulette Bug. They named it Overton and Motley. Well, Mr. Motley was involved with his family, I guess, who owned Motley Construction Company. So I think Motley was just part of it in name only, and Overton was going to run the hardware store. Well, things went along pretty good. They got the store going, and then shortly thereafter, Mr. Overton died. So then it left it just being Motley Hardware. And it was Motley Hardware when I was coming along. And Miss Motley was one of the founding members of the Historical Society. She was still going strong. She and her husband ended up running the Motley Hardware And I think she really ran the store and her husband. If any of y'all ever went in there. But she came here and started the Historical Society too, so that's why I kind of mentioned that. But that's how we came to have Motley Hardware. When Mr. Paulette went home, he decided to put this brick building up right here in his front yard. He was 65 years old. He decided he would put a brick building in his front yard and rent it out. His plan was to rent out retail downstairs, doctors, dentists, and lawyers upstairs. So that's what he did. He prominently put his name up at the top of the building, and the name Paulette is sometimes confused in Farmville because we had Paulettes with an E on the end, and sometimes there are Paulettes with no E on the end. So Richard H. Paulette had no E on his end, so he was the E-less end. But he continued to live in a house behind his store for 32 more years and died at the age of 97 in the house behind his building. But here's what it said. In 1958, he died at the age of 97. Here's a picture of his house right here. Many of you will probably know that on this lot right here, the town built the post office. I believe it was 1919 or so. But his house was right here on the corner, and the new building was in his front yard. Behind here is a tobacco warehouse. This burned down later on, and that's where they built the Farmville buildings that we have now. And this building, big house right here, it was a Lane's business school toward the end. And Mr. Weinberg ended up buying the Paulette house, this land behind it, and the Lane school. So the land where the Lane house was, I think, basically became a parking lot. And next to that parking lot, most of us will remember High's ice cream store.
Yeah.
So that's, and the rest of that was just offices, I think. But here's a plat of it. This being Main Street, this being High Street. There you can see the footprint of Mr. Paulette's house. And then all this blue area was the odd-shaped building that Mr. Paulette built. There's a close-up of his name up the top. In 1958, immediately almost after he died, they sold his house. And there's a picture of the auction. I think Willie Dickinson auctioned it off, and Joe Weinberg bought the property for $59,100, according to the newspaper article. And you can see it drew a pretty big crowd. A better picture of it, but there's a picture of the house right there. So the first person to go in and rent at the corner building there was Jack Peerlove, the pharmacist. And shortly after he got in there and rented, I'll call it the left-hand side or the High Street side, his sister comes along and puts a dress store on the other side. So they moved right in, and that's how they got reestablished on Main Street. Like I said, Jack was a pharmacist. Harry was, I guess, the helper, and his sister rented the other part of the building and ran a dress store. And I guess some of you probably remember Southside Drugstore. I do. Anybody else? We do have some bottles from Southside Drugstore too. When Jack no longer was a pharmacist, and he was ready to get out of the business, Mr. Crook came along and took over. They could no longer call it Southside Drugstore because you had to have a pharmacist license to call it a drugstore. There was no pharmacist there's a picture of it. And see that sign that says Grill Restaurant? I had kind of forgotten about that. I'll show you where that was in just a second. Let's see, what is it? Jack Peerlove opens a new Southside drugstore in August of 1926, just months after the fire. They didn't waste any time putting that building up and him getting in there and opening his drugstore. So he was the first person to occupy that building. And I know several dentists and doctors were upstairs from the very beginning. So you go upstairs and see the doctor, go down and get your prescription. So there's a picture of it today. Called Hunter today and told his son to tell him to get down here tonight. We had his information for him, but I don't see him here tonight, but they can see it on the internet later. I presume that's Jack Peerlove, unless somebody else knows different. I don't know who else would be standing outside getting the picture taken. I doubt if it was Harry. But so we'll say that's Jack, and you can see the name Southside Drug right across the top up there. I superimposed that shot right into this building, and there it fits right in there perfectly. So that's how it would look if he was standing out there today. Close up. Here's where his sister, Miss Greenberg, comes in and says she opens a dress shop, and she also opens a dress shop in Danville at the same time. I don't think her dress shop lasted too long, and I don't know whether she went to Danville or just went away, but this is the last we hear of his sister. Jumping up to 1932, the prescription business must have been good because Jack, the pharmacist, announces that he has purchased the building across the street known as the Old Barrel Building, and he plans to rent it out upstairs to doctors, lawyers, and so on. And downstairs, where Mr. Shannon is already operating his bakery and little restaurant, he gives Mr. Shannon a 5-year lease to stay in there. So Jack is, I guess you'd say, stretching out and becoming a real estate baron as well as a druggist. So that's their start at that. 1934, the drugstore again, still doing good. And the sister, evidently having gone out of business with her dress store, Jack takes that space as part of the wall cut down between the dress store and the drugstore and expands his drugstore into the, and I can remember this, when you went in there, there was like a food part and a drugstore part. And as I remember, the kind of lunch counter was right down in the middle. So anyway, he starts selling, soda, ice cream counter, all that, just like Chapel's had. And part of it was a drugstore, part of it he was dipping his finger into the food business, basically. So there was drugstore on the left side and food fountain on this side over here where his sister had been. Up here, doctors, lawyers, dentists. In 1934, Jack again buys out his competition right down the street where Terry Atkins Wilson is now. There was a store called Wade's Confectionery, and it was kind of like Chapel's. They had a soda fountain, light food, magazines, books, things that the college students would need. I think, according to what I can understand and learn, Jack felt like he was a competition. He went down and bought Mr. Wade out completely, line, stock, and barrel, told him to go home. Mr. Wade was getting old, so immediately he shut the store down and never opened it back up. he just wanted him out of the way. So that's the kind of operator Mr. Pirlo was. So he would also go on and buy 2 more buildings, and I'll get to that in a minute. But over here on the left is his building, and you'll see the sign, The Grill. Well, that's where he had knocked down the wall and went into the restaurant business over there. He's also on this side over here bought the Barrow building, which he has the College Shoppe in. Right here where this area is, it points to where Mr. Wade was. He's bought that building. And over here, I have an arrow pointing to this building. He bought the Parrot, what we now call the Parrots building. He bought that building. And I don't know what the thinking was there, but Motley Construction Company ended up going upstairs in that building. And at some time later on, the A&P went downstairs. The A&P was in that building. There was a second location the A&P had. The A&P started out where the Red Door art store is. Later they moved down to where Parrots is. Moving along here, there's Mr. Wade. He's a distinguished looking businessman, and there's where he was right there. And no longer. Pirlo buys out Wade in 1934. Closes the door and forgets all about him, I guess. But back up here at the grill, soda fountain. I hardly remember the grill, but it's, from what I can find, it operated from the early 1940s through the 1960s. Here's an ad I found in 1942 where they were trying to get waitresses. So here, as the Pirlos become Mr. Shannon's landlord, John Shannon is running a combination bakery and a restaurant. A section of the bakery is sectioned off for the Rose Room restaurant area. Business is going good for Mr. Shannon. I think when he got up there, he couldn't sell enough bakery goods to make it, so he started dabbling in snacks. And eventually got into the restaurant business. So that was the beginning, kind of the seed for the coming College Shoppe, I guess you can say. So we have Shannon's Bakery and the Rose Room. Mr. Shannon is renting this space for his bakery restaurant from Jack Pirlo, who is running the drugstore across the street. Mr. Shannon has a 5-year lease which ends in 1936. After renting the ground floor of the new Pirlo building to John Shannon for Shannon's Bakery, Confectionery, and Rose Room for 5 years, the Pirlo brothers, John and Harry, tell John Shannon, hey, your lease is up, you gotta go. So they kick him out. It's a surprise eviction notion. What are the Pirlo brothers up to now? I mean, they were ruthless. The Pirlo brothers decided they want the College Shoppe. They couldn't stand it. They had to get over there, kick him out, and they wanted it. They could do it. So there they are. They're running this one across over here on the left. They go over and kick him out and take over the one across the street. So they name it the College Shoppe. They are in operation on both sides of the street. You might say they were a little greedy. Well, how do you think that made Mr. Shannon feel? So here they are. They bought this building down here, which is the Parrots building. That's where later they put the A&P in. Later Parrots would buy that building. No, nothing to do with the story, but I'll tell you how Parrots got in there. About the time that the Pirlos were dying out and closing out, they got old, one of them died, one of them wanted out. Mr. Parrot, who had Parrots, or the electric shop as it was called, he had the corner where the First National Bank was, and the bank wanted that corner. So they bought Mr. Parrott there to kick him off that corner, and Mr. Parrott had to find another place right quick, so he went and bought this place right here. And as I heard, Motley still stayed upstairs, Motley Construction, for a good while, and Parrott's was down here. Then they had the Army Goods Store and several other things in here, but that's how we got Parrott's from one corner over to this other side. I also mentioned that in 1940, you know, we had the theater down here in the corner. In 1940, I believe it was Ham's brothers in Richmond, who also owned a lot of real estate. They bought out the theater and they came in here and they remodeled the theater. Well, everybody back in the day, they would go to the theater and then they would get out and go down to the College Shoppe. That was kind of one of the things you did. So that all kind of played into it. The closeness to the theater was always a big thing. And Mr. Shannon knew that too. So here we had fire department or the municipal building, College Shoppe tucked right in the middle, and then this was on the other side. And when Mr. Shannon got kicked out here, he went over here and got right here on the other side of the Farmville Motor Company. So I told Kirby I could figure it out. September 12, 1936, the Pier Love College Shoppe opened on Main Street. So they were owners number one. They had their first official College Shoppe name. And the new Shannons would open about a week later. But his College Shoppe again, there was an opening ad, ice cream 15 cents, had all kinds of incentives. And opposite Southside Drug, he had to stick that in his ad. But so we had Southside Drug on this corner, Pier Love's College Shoppe was right here. Well, Mr. Shannon didn't want to be outdone. He goes over here and buys a building that was here, knocked it down and put up a brand new building. And within 3 weeks, he was opening up and being in competition with the Pier Loves. He was not having it. He was going to give him hell. So he had he went in there where the W.A. Watson is now, and he gave a run for their money. And there he jumps from there up and over here to this new spot. And here it is announcing that he is putting a modern new building, all new equipment. I mean, he went all out. He wasted no time striking back. In July of 36, he announced he had purchased the old A.A. Davis building, which he tore down and built a new building. What I thought was interesting that he did, this building right here was what later became Travis's Sears Roebuck. This building was, this is what it looked like back then. Mr. Shannon didn't want to miss anything. During the time his new building was being put up, he goes in here to this Continental Hotel and tells the people that run that, hey, let's make a deal. I'm going to bring all my waitresses and cooks and my pots and pans, and I'm going to operate out of your place. And they let him do it. So you could go into the Continental Hotel dining hall and get your Shannon's food. So he didn't miss a beat. That was pretty slick, I thought. On September 25th, the Herald reports that the new Shannon's is completed. It's a brand new building, brand new everything. There's his opening ad. Here's what the building looked like. This is the only picture I have of the outside of it. And this is a 1940 snow, so that's why you can't see all of it. But there's his new ad, and he's out for blood here, you might as well say. See in this picture, that's a bowling in, I guess you would say. He went so far as to put a bowling alley in his basement. And guess what? It's still there. If you go down there, maybe Gene Watson will let you bowl. I inquired, and this there, and I had this picture, better picture of his sign. I asked somebody to go down there and take a picture of it for me. That's the picture I got back. It shot up in the air instead of shooting down the lane. But anyway, it's still there. I understand it's full of storage stuff, junk, but it's there. And all these years, I had never known it was a bowling alley under that building. But he catered to the college girls and the Ham Sydney boys, and that was his thinking behind the bowling. In 1972, Mr. Shannon died. He was 77 years old, and someone told me that something about this obituary might not be exactly right, but here's what I got into the paper. It could be a 10-year difference, it could be a typo, but anyway, when Mr. Shannon got ready to go out of business, retired, a fellow named Carl Gimper took over from John Shannon, so it stayed open. And then about 2 years after that, Buddy Whitaker, who some of y'all know that, I don't know if he's still alive now or not, but he's been on the town council and all that recently.
He's not still alive.
He died. He died. He was fairly, he stayed active in the Farmville town activities for a long time. He took over the restaurant for a while, but he didn't find that to suit him either. But he was, his family and the Shannon family were closely involved together. And I think he thought he'd make a go of it, but I think he decided he didn't need to work, and why bother? So I think that's Buddy Whitaker in that picture there. Not positive. Y'all think it is? I don't know. That's just a picture I had. Anyway, so that, as far as I know, the next thing that went in that building was Southside Electric, John Porter Glenn and his father. And they sold appliances, and they were in the electrical contracting business. And I guess, I don't know why they left, but they left there and went out by the Tasty Freeze and put a building up in the 50s. Now some kind of a rehab place there. But I think when Southside Electric pulled out, W.A. Watson must have bought the property, and it's been W.A. Watson Insurance a long time. Anyway, that brings us back. There's the College Shoppe. And I'm going to show you some old pictures from Main Street with the College Shoppe in it. Good picture of looking down Main Street. This picture had to be taken about 1940 or so, from the looks of the cars. Two pictures taken by Robert Taylor. I don't see Robert in it. He must have been behind the camera. But they were just two pictures he. In fact, what he took was a home movie. And Bob gave me the home movie, and I extracted pictures from that home movie. 1952, you can see the prices of the food. It ran anywhere from 35 cents to 85 cents to eat there. Lunch specials. This would have been 2 years before the Keelings came to Farmville. Here in 53, the prices had gone up from 35 cents to 80 cents. Or maybe they went down a little bit, that's what it was. Peerless was still running it during this part. By 1955, Harry Peerless had passed away. And his brother, the pharmacist, Jack, he didn't want to run the restaurant, of course. He immediately put it on the market, and Landon Atkins immediately sold it to an this was a total surprise to everybody. An ex-Canadian businessman takes over the management of the College Shoppe. Then that's all, the rest of that is not with this. But in October of '55, Landon Atkins sold the business of this man named Norman Gottiel from Montreal, Canada, bought it from Landon Atkins. I don't think hardly anybody around here ever knew that there was an owner in between, but for a year at least, Norman had it. I don't have any record of him actually running it or why he bought it or why, but it was sold to him, the title to him, and then he sold it to Jack Keelan. Let's see. Mr. Cruder's out of sequence there. We'll come back to him. Yeah, that's a line. Harry has died in '55. Jack sold the drugstore to, now this is the drugstore across the street here. Jack sells the College Shoppe. He decides he don't want to be in the drugstore business anymore. Dave Krug, who used to work at the drugstore when he was a young man, he decides he and James would go into the drugstore business, and it says, I didn't want to talk out of school, but it says the Krugs bought the store from Jack Peerlove, who made the loan for the purchase himself. So he must have financed them, put them in business, and so that's how the Krugs came into business. And I asked Jane one time, when did y'all open up? She couldn't really remember, but I see here that I later found that it was 1955. So one of the Peerloves had died, and then the other one sold to Dave Krug. So the Peerlove days were coming to an end. No sooner than all that went on, April of '56, the Farmville Herald found this reports that Jack Keelan and his family had moved to a home on Madison Street, which is over there on the Longwood campus today near McDonald's area. Jack buys the College Shoppe. Now from the Peerloves, he really bought it from the man from Canada, I guess, but anyway, Jack takes over and starts running the College Shoppe. There's another picture. It's got to be in the '70s because of that Oldsmobile. There's a '70 model, I believe. But moving away from that disruption, in 1968, which would have been 5 years later, Jack, Kirby's grandfather, owner of the College Shoppe, he decided to retire at the age of 62 approximately, and his son Ray Keeling assumes the business from his father. Ray is 38 years of age. Does that sound about right?
I'm not sure.
I determined this from their date of birth and their deaths in the obituary, so that they're approximately within a month or so of all of that. But and then again, we just have some samples of some of the menus. Shows us how much things have gone up. This is the only picture I've ever gotten of the inside of the College Shoppe. And this was a little league picture of an out-of-town group of boys. So I brightened it up so you could see the inside of the building, but you can't see who the boys are, but they were from out of state. I guess they'd come up here and the Farmville boys had whipped them. Took them down and gave them something to eat and sent them home. A visiting baseball team enjoys a meal at the College Shoppe. This is a newer menu. This is just where they applied for beer license. In 1977, Ray Keeling Jack's son, passed away at the age of 47. So he died at a young age, and there's his obituary. And this is Jack, his daddy's obituary. He died in 88, 11 years later. What happened when his son died, Jack had to step back in and basically settle the estate. Unbeknownst to me, until I did this program for the family recently, Cindy, Ray's daughter, told me that her daddy had been in some type of negotiations with the Walkers and Trent and his wife Elizabeth. They wanted to buy the College Shoppe, and the Keelans wanted to evidently sell to them, from what Cindy told me. You ever heard it? So, but I'm sure they wanted to buy the business. Well, this was a total surprise to me. I had no idea, because I just thought the Walkers went down to the diner one day and said, let's buy it out. But they were all along, they were trying to buy the College Shoppe. When Ray died, Jack, the father, he sold the real estate, the building, to the town of Farmville, and so really there was no business to sell to the Walkers. So that is how the Walkers ended up down at Walker's Diner. So that was another interesting twist of the story. But a lot of us knew Trent Walker when he cut hair at the barber shop. That was back when I had hair and Trent was cutting. That all came to an end too. So there's Walker's Diner. And by 1970, the town right away grabbed up the property because they needed it to build this new police station they wanted to build. So immediately, the equipment went up for auction, and they sold everything right away. The town took over. The town, I just followed what was in the paper. Municipal complex to include the College Shoppe. 79, they announced that the police headquarters will be in the new college, in the old College Shoppe building. So what the town was doing was part of the time they were in the municipal building, and part of the time they were in the old College Shoppe. They were shuffling around till they could get this new building put up, but they finally got it put up. Of course, the College Shoppe building was torn down. So that's how it all unfolded, and I want to let everybody know that we have refreshments in the back. The next meeting will be January the 16th, and the way we have the table set up with the cookies back there, if y'all could just leave the chairs out here and not run over people trying to get cookies. No, let everybody get the cookies and go home, and then we'll put the chairs away. Any questions?
I'd like to share this with y'all. Ray Keelan was my neighbor, and Ray Keelan was one hard-working man.
Yes.
He would leave at 3 and 4 o'clock in the morning and get back home at 9 and 10 o'clock at night. And it wasn't very often that I would see Ray, but I saw him one day. I said, Ray, tell me an interesting story. And he told me, he said, one thing you do is you watch what you tell people, because it could come back to haunt you. And I said, how's that? He said, before you moved over here, the man that owned your house came to me one night when I came home at 9 o'clock and told me the town of Farmville is making the biggest mess I've ever seen. They pick up the trash and throw the paper all in my yard. And Ray said he was just worn out, so he gave him a good flip answer. He said, why don't you buy you a goat? And he said he went on in the house and never thought about it anymore. Well, he said about 2 months later he came home, 9 o'clock at night, got out of his car, and when he stepped out the car he heard, meh. He said, I made a mistake.
Pretty good. Did they ever figure out what started that fire?
No.
When did they remodel the fire department?
You mean,
The motor, when they tore it down there.
when did they get off Main Street? Okay, 1956.
The fire department?
Yeah, I don't know it all. Here's why I know it.
I just remember it being there, but I didn't know.
Before we did, about 2 years ago, we did a program, so the fire department went on for over a year. We documented where all the firehouses were. He figured out when all the fire trucks were bought and sold and where they went. And so I had to know when they left. What happened was at the municipal building down Main Street, they bought a brand new, real big fire truck. We
Yeah.
couldn't get it in the building.
Yeah, remember my uncle was in.
I got a question. I shared with my older sister that I was coming here tonight, and she was remembering back the College Shoppe as I can remember. And we weren't for sure. I remember as a kid going in there, in the back there was a music box, a jukebox in the back. And she was trying to remember. She said when she used to go to choir practice in the youth choir at Farmville Baptist Church, that always would slip up to the College Shoppe. And she remembered it having those little music selection wall boxes, wherever you want to call it, in each booth.
Yeah, that's what I was
Those are
saying.
always
That's what I
that.
remember.
Yeah, I couldn't remember
There
that.
were those all down the right side from that
Yeah.
picture
Yeah.
we saw. And
Yeah,
we
okay.
used to go there a lot,
Yep.
I'm sure.
My mother used to work at the College Shoppe.
Years
Yeah,
ago.
years
A
ago.
lot of people did that.
Yeah,
His
yeah.
daddy, that's when they
That's
got
when
married.
my daddy met her at the College Shoppe. Yeah.
Joe, do you want to share your experience at the College Shoppe?
That's where I met my husband.
Yeah.
Standing on the corner.
You know, Ray, when I came to Hampton, Sydney, we'd come in, get haircuts, and Ray Keelan was cutting hair then at Harry's Barber Shop.
Okay. That's interesting. I think that I found in researching the Farmville Earls, I would type in like Keelan and it would give me every time the name showed up in the Farmville Earl. I think he came to town in the earlier 50s and had inquired about getting the restaurant on the corner there next to Harry's Barber Shop, or right along there. But then the town came through and tore that building down. So he didn't pursue it any further.
You got a Keelan in your grade.
Jackie was in my class. And there was another little sister named Booty, a Susan, right?
I just wanted to say, my granddad wasn't a real fan of driving for whatever reason. He would do it, but he didn't enjoy it. Any kind of long trip, he'd make somebody else drive. Well, they eventually bought a house on 15 South, probably half a mile, 3/4 of a mile before you get to the old fishing pig on the left. It's a white house kind of down in the woods. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Well, apparently if it was bad weather, like it snowed a little bit, the police would go get him, bring him in, so he could cook their breakfast and make the well, he wasn't going to drive it, and they knew it. You mentioned a while.
Came to Farmville to do research for Paul Brumfield. I rented a basement apartment from Bess Whitaker, and I could tell you chapters on Bess. But anyway, woke up one morning and put my feet on what was supposed to be a rug, and suddenly it was cold. I looked down, a snake had come in and curled up on the rug. So I had a collection of snakes, so I just got a plastic bag. It was so cold it wouldn't move much, so I stuck it in the thing. And there was a mantle in the room that I rented, and I put a book up on that and just put the snake in there. Well, Bess had a maid
called Lou. I never did know her last name. But anyway, I usually would eat down at the College Shoppe. I eat breakfast down there. So I was halfway through the breakfast, and I just happened to think Lou was coming in. And I inhaled whatever I'd ordered, and I ran up High Street and got there just in time. Lou was coming down the hallway to my room. I said, wait just a minute, because I thought if she goes in there and sees that snake, I won't have any service at all after that.
I was curious, this is neat history, you're talking about the Pure Love family and the Shannon family,
Okay.
were quite competitors. Is anyone aware of any other descendants of that family that stayed around farm?
Say that again.
I was curious if anyone was aware that Pure Love Shannons seem to be very competitive. And I wonder if there were any other descendants of them that stayed around farm?
Yes.
Yeah.
I'll tell
Just more of a comment, I wish I'd written this stuff down. I had conversations with my granddad about the College Shoppe many times. But there were 364 days each year. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, just around the clock, like we talked about. My granddad worked at the same hours as Ray. He worked 2 days, basically. Worked in the morning, took a little nap, or played pool across the street or something, then came back for the second shift. But he was telling me the sheer volume that they did there. I remember his saying that the bread truck had come twice a day. And he went through, I don't even know if this number could possibly be correct, but I remember him saying he went through like 100 cases of eggs a day, cartons, cases. It was just, I got to think to myself, there was no McDonald's, nothing like that. You had Cedar Brook and the Steer and that. Of course, the drugstores, you could get a lunch there.
Yeah. And the truck stop hadn't opened either at that time.
Just the volume that he would tell me about it. The food people just had to, they were coming every day to restock it. Keep them going.
Most of y'all know that we ran a grocery store when I was young, and we were open every day but Christmas Day, 7 in the morning till 11 at night. And when it snowed or some emergency, either the cops had to come get you, or in most cases, we just spent the night at the grocery store and we were there the next morning. All I had to do was sober up, open the door.
Did y'all when it flooded, did you sleep on the grass?
I stayed there when it flooded. The rescue squad had to come get me.
So much of this, I was looking at it, Jimmy, happened during the Great Depression.
Yeah.
Can you imagine what those people went through?
Yeah.
It was tough.
Yes. Okay, we had a little miscue, so all we have for the gift tonight is this. Let's see what we got here. The last couple of numbers is 005. Somebody came early. Smith.
Thank you.
Well, I guess we can have cookies now. My wife will turn the blues back there.
Thank you, Jimmy.
Y'all put your old tickets back in the basket, we'll recycle them.
Yeah, why?
Oh, mercy. Got your old ticket in there. Recycle, we can help the town make some money. My dad redid it now.
If they are, if they were never.
That was Davis.
That was good, I enjoyed that.
we want to go to